On my 72nd birthday, my daughter-in-law placed my dinner on the floor and said, "Eat here. I don't want you ruining the good furniture." That was the last night I let anyone treat me like furniture. Before continuing, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and write in the comments, where are you listening from? I wasn't supposed to hear what she said. But sound carries differently in the house you built with your own hands. Every creak, every whisper, I know them all. God, I hope he doesn't embarrass us tonight. Madison's voice drifted from the kitchen where she was arranging canapes on my mother's serving platter, the one with the hand-painted roses, the one I'd watched Mom use for 43 Thanksgivings before we buried her. "He won't," my son Daniel replied. His voice had that appeasing quality I'd heard too often lately. "Dad knows this is important." Does he, though? Last time he started that story about the lumber yard, in front of the Hendersons, Daniel, they own 3 auto dealerships. I stood in the hallway outside my own kitchen, 72 years old, holding a bag of ice I'd gone to fetch from the garage freezer. My fingers had gone numb, but not from the cold. "Madison, he's excited to meet your friends. Cut him some slack." "Slack? I've cut plenty of slack." But tonight's different. The Vanderhoffs are coming. Real estate development. Daniel. The kind of connections that matter. I can't have your father talking about, I don't know, tile, grout, or whatever. There was a pause. I heard the refrigerator open. "What do you want me to do?" Daniel asked. Tired, defeated. "Just manage him. Keep the conversation elevated. And for God's sake, make sure he doesn't wear that cardigan with the elbow patches." I looked down. I was wearing the cardigan. Maria had given it to me for our 45th anniversary, 3 years before the cancer took her. I should have walked in right then. Should have said something. Instead, I turned around and went back to the garage, put the ice in the chest freezer, sat down on the old workbench where I used to help Daniel with his Pinewood Derby cars. The wood was smooth under my palms. I'd sanded it myself in 1985. This was supposed to be my birthday dinner, 72 years. Daniel had insisted I move in with them 6 months ago, after I'd had that dizzy spell at the hardware store. "Dad, the house is too much for you now," he'd said. "We've got plenty of room. Madison's excited to have you." I'd sold the house Maria and I built in 1978. Every cabinet I'd hung, every tile I'd laid, every window I'd replaced. I got $340,000 for it. Put $300,000 into a trust for my grandchildren's education. Gave Daniel $25,000 to help with the mortgage on this place, the 4-bedroom colonial in Thornwood Estates that Madison had wanted so badly. I kept $15,000 for myself. Emergency money. Old man money. "Grandpa?" I looked up. Sophie stood in the garage doorway. 8 years. Old, gap-toothed, holding her stuffed elephant. "Hey, Peanut, what you doing out here?" Mom said I had to stay upstairs during the party. She said it's a sophisticated gathering. Sophie made air quotes with her fingers, frowning. "What does that mean?" "It means the grown-ups want to talk about boring stuff without kids asking good questions." She giggled and climbed up next to me on the workbench. "Are you sad, Grandpa?" "Kids see everything." "Just thinking, sweetheart." "About Grandma?" "Yeah, about Grandma." Sophie leaned against my arm. "I miss her too. She made better cookies than Mom." I smiled despite everything. "Don't let your mom hear you say that. Mom doesn't make cookies. She buys them from that expensive place and puts them on plates, out of the mouths of babes." We sat there for a few minutes, quiet. Then Sophie said, "You should come inside. It's your birthday. You're supposed to be happy on your birthday." "You're right. Let's go be happy. I took off the cardigan in my bedroom and put on the navy blazer Maria had bought me for Daniel's wedding. It still fit, barely. I looked at myself in the mirror. An old man looked back. 72 years of work, love, loss, and apparently inconvenience. The doorbell started ringing at 6:30. I stayed in my room until 7, listening to the voices multiply downstairs. Laughter, the clink of glasses, Madison's bright, performative voice rising above the rest. When I finally came down, the living room was full of people I'd never met. Madison spotted me immediately. Her smile was brilliant and cold. "Oh, there he is." "Everyone, this is Daniel's father, Robert." She said it the way you might introduce a moderately interesting piece of furniture. "Robert, come meet the Vanderhoffs." I shook hands. Made small talk. "Yes, I used to be a contractor. Yes, I built custom homes for 30 years. Yes, I'm enjoying retirement." No one asked what I actually enjoyed. No one asked about Maria, though her photo was still on the mantel, the only item from my old house that Madison had permitted in the common areas. "Dinner," Madison announced at 7:30. The dining room table was set with china I didn't recognize, flowers I didn't recognize, candles that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I moved toward my usual seat at the table. "Robert," Madison's hand touched my shoulder. "Firm, we have place cards tonight." I looked down. Every seat had a small cream card with a name in calligraphy. Mine wasn't among them. "I don't see. You're over there." She pointed to a TV tray that had been set up near the corner by the heating vent and the coat closet. A single-place setting, a folding chair. The conversation around us had died. 12 people watching. "Madison, that's—" Daniel started. "It's fine," I said quietly. "It's fine. It's just that we have an even number for proper dinner conversation," Madison explained to the room, as if this were perfectly reasonable. "Robert understands. Don't you, Robert?" I looked at my son. He was staring at his shoes. "Sure," I said. "I understand." I sat at the TV tray. From there, I had a perfect view of everyone at the real table. Madison held court, talking about the charity gala she was organizing, the redesign of their master bathroom, the vacation home they were considering in Sedona. Daniel laughed at the right moments, poured wine, played his part. Sophie kept looking over at me, confused. The food came out. Madison had hired a catering company, herb-crusted lamb, roasted vegetables with names I couldn't pronounce, tiny potatoes that cost more per pound than ribeye. She brought my plate out last, set it down on the TV tray without looking at me. "Here you go," she said. Then, just loud enough for the people nearest to hear, but not quite loud enough to be confronted, "We can't have you dropping anything on the good furniture." Someone laughed. One of the Onami Vanderhoffs, I think. She'd put the plate on the floor, not on the TV tray, on the floor, next to my chair. "Eat from the floor like a pet," she said, patting my shoulder. "That way we won't have any accidents." The room went silent, not the shocked kind of silence, the uncomfortable kind. The kind where people don't know if they're supposed to laugh or pretend they didn't hear. I looked at the plate, at the food arranged so carefully, at the floor that I'd taught Daniel how to install when he was 16 during summer break, so he'd know the value of working with his hands. Then I looked at Madison, really looked at her. She was smiling, waiting. I stood up slowly. My knees cracked. 72 years of climbing ladders and carrying lumber. "You know what?" I said. My voice was calm. "Steady. I'm not very hungry after all." "Robert," Daniel started. "It's fine, son." Really? I smiled at him. I even meant it. I think I'll just turn in early. You folks enjoy your sophisticated gathering. I walked past the table, past the staring faces, past Sophie, who looked like she might cry. In my room, the guest room, really, with its generic duvet and empty walls, I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. I made one call. Thompson and Associates Law Firm. How may I direct your call? I need to speak with James Thompson, please. Tell him it's Robert Mitchell. He handled my wife's estate. One moment, Mr. Mitchell. Through the floor, I could hear laughter. The party continuing. The Vanderhoffs were probably charmed. Madison was probably glowing. Robert? Jim Thompson's voice was warm. We'd known each other for 30 years. He'd been Maria's attorney, then mine. Everything okay? Jim, I need to ask you about the trust I set up. The one for my grandchildren's education, and the money I gave Daniel for the house. Of course. What's the question? I looked at the ceiling, listened to the footsteps above me, Madison's heels clicking on the hardwood. What would it take to undo all of it? There was a pause. Then, Robert, what happened? How long would it take? To revoke the trust? Get back control of those funds? Given that you're the grantor and it's a revocable trust. I could have preliminary papers drawn up by tomorrow afternoon. But Robert, this is a big step. Those funds are $300,000. I know exactly what they are, Jim. They're every extra shift I worked, every weekend I gave up, every vacation Maria and I postponed. Another pause. Do you want to come to my office? Tomorrow morning. First thing. I'll clear my schedule. I hung up and sat there for a long time. The party sounds continued below. Around 10:30, I heard cars leaving, goodbyes being called, Madison's voice happy and bright. We should do this again soon. Around 11, someone knocked softly on my door. Dad? Daniel's voice. I didn't answer. Dad, I know you're awake. Can we talk? I opened the door. My son stood there, tie loosened, wine flushed, guilty. Listen, about tonight. It's late, Daniel. She didn't mean it the way it looked. Madison she gets stressed with these events. And she put my dinner on the floor. I know. I should have said something. It's complicated, Dad. I looked at him, at this man I'd raised, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose college I'd paid for in full $48,000, back when that meant something, whose wedding I'd funded another $32,000 because Madison wanted the country club and the ice sculpture and the band that played at her sorority formal. It's not complicated, son. It's actually very simple. Dad, I'm tired. We'll talk tomorrow. I closed the door before he could respond. That night, I didn't sleep much. I lay there in the dark, doing arithmetic in my head. The kind of arithmetic that measures a life in dollars and cents, because sometimes that's the only language people understand. The house Maria and I built, $340,000 sale price. Market value now, probably $425,000. I'd sold low because Daniel said they needed help with their mortgage. Daniel's college, $48,000. His graduate degree, another $35,000. I'd paid every penny while working full-time and taking side jobs on weekends. His wedding, $32,000. Madison had wanted everything perfect. I'd wanted my son happy, the trust for Sophie and her brother Jake's education, $300,000, set up the day after I moved in here. The loan to help with their mortgage, $25,000. No paperwork, no repayment schedule, just a father helping his son. Total $440,000, plus 65 years of being present, of showing up, of teaching him how to change a tire, balance a checkbook, treat people with dignity. And tonight I'd eaten from the floor like a dog. No. Tonight I'd been asked to eat from the floor like a dog. I hadn't done it. That was important. I needed to remember that. I hadn't done it. The arithmetic continued. My monthly Social Security, $2,100. My pension from the contractors union, $1,400. Total, $3,500 a month. I gave Daniel $1,000 of that for room and board. Madison's idea. So I was paying rent to sleep in a guest room in a house I'd helped purchase. Paying for the privilege of being humiliated at my own birthday dinner. I got up at 5:30, habit from 40 years of construction work. Made coffee quietly in the kitchen. Madison had one of those European machines that cost more than my first car. I couldn't figure it out, so I just boiled water and made instant in a mug. The real mugs were in a cabinet marked with little labels. Every day, guests, fine china. My instant coffee went into an everyday mug. I sat at the kitchen island watching the sun come up. This was the first time I'd been alone in the common areas since I'd moved in. It was nice, quiet. On the refrigerator, held by a magnet shaped like a wine bottle, was Madison's calendar. Color-coded, everything scheduled. I saw my name only once, yesterday's date. Robert's birthday dinner, important guests. Not Dad's birthday. Not celebrate Robert. Just a reminder that important guests would be present. Sophie came down around 6:30, dragging her backpack. School day. Morning, Grandpa. Morning, Peanut. Want some cereal? I'm supposed to wait for Mom. She makes me yogurt parfait. Fancy. Sophie climbed onto the stool next to me. Grandpa, why did Mom make you sit at the little table? Sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make much sense. It made me sad. Yeah, kiddo. Made me sad too, Jake said, Mom's being a jerk. He's 12, so he can say jerk. I smiled despite everything. What do you think? Sophie considered this carefully. I think sometimes people forget to be nice. But you're supposed to remember, especially to family. You're pretty smart, you. Know that? I know. She grinned. Then, are you going to move away? The question hit harder than expected. Why would you ask that? Because you look like you're already gone. Kids really do see everything. Madison came down at 7, perfectly dressed, perfectly made up. She saw me, and her smile flickered. Robert, you're up early. Old habits. About last night. I have an appointment in town this morning. I'll be gone most of the day. An appointment? Her eyes narrowed. Everything okay? Just fine. Taking care of some business. Daniel appeared, already in his suit. He worked in pharmaceutical sales. Made good money. Not enough for this lifestyle, though. Not enough for Madison's tastes. Dad, can we talk before you go? Not much to say, son. I'll be back this evening. I left before anyone could ask more questions. Jim Thompson's office was in one of the old buildings downtown, the ones they haven't torn down yet for condos. Wood paneling, law books, photos of his grandkids. Robert, he shook my hand, concerned. Sit down, talk to me. So I did. I told him everything. The months of small dismissals, the comments about my clothes, my stories, my very presence, the way Madison spoke about me when she thought I couldn't hear, the TV tray, the floor. Jim listened without interrupting. When I finished, He was quiet for a long moment. "The trust is easy," he finally said. "You're the grantor. It's revocable. The funds are still intact. We can dissolve it and return full control to you within a week. And the money I gave Daniel? That's trickier. Was it a gift or a loan?" He called it a loan. I called it helping my son. "But there's no paperwork? No promissory note?" "No. I trusted him." Jim rubbed his face. "We could potentially make an oral contract argument, but it would be messy and expensive, and it would destroy whatever relationship you have left with Daniel. That relationship ate dinner on the floor last night, Jim." He nodded slowly. "Let me ask you something. What do you actually want here? Revenge? Justice? Or just to protect yourself?" I thought about that. "I want my dignity back, and I want to make sure Sophie and Jake are taken care of, but not by people who think money means you can treat others like garbage." "Okay, here's what I can do." Jim pulled out a legal pad. "We dissolve the trust immediately. That gives you back full control of the $300,000. Then we set up a new trust, one that Daniel and Madison aren't trustees of. You can name conditions, requirements. What kind of requirements? Whatever you want. Academic performance, character standards. Hell, you could require that the kids write you a thank you note every semester. Your money, your rules, and the $25,000 I gave them?" Jim tapped his pen. "Let me do some digging. Check the property records. If your money went toward the house purchase and you can prove it, we might have options. Not guarantees, but options. How long? Give me 3 days for research. But Robert, I have to ask, are you sure? This will detonate your relationship with Daniel." "Jim, what relationship? I'm a wallet with a heartbeat. That's all I've been since Maria died." He didn't argue. I spent 3 hours in Jim's office that day. We went through everything. Bank statements, the trust documents, email records, copies of checks I'd written. The numbers told a story. A very clear story. When I got home that evening, Madison was in the living room with 2 other women I'd never met. Wine glasses, laughter. They stopped talking when I walked in. "Robert, these are my friends from the junior league." I walked past without responding, went to my room, closed the door. Through the wall, I heard one of them. "Is he always that rude?" And Madison, "He's been difficult since he moved in. Adjustment issues." I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. My phone buzzed. Text from Daniel. "Dad, can we please talk?" I didn't respond. The next morning, Saturday, I woke up to voices in the hallway. Madison and Daniel, arguing in whispers. "Your father is being ridiculous. You did put his dinner on the floor, Madison." "It was a joke, Daniel." God, everyone's so sensitive. "The Vanderhoffs left early. They said it was uncomfortable. So now it's my fault that your father can't take a joke." I got dressed and left while they were still arguing. Drove to the diner on Route 9, the one with the good coffee and the waitress who'd been there since I was middle-aged. "Robert," Deb smiled when I walked in. "Haven't seen you in months. Where you been?" "Living with my son, over in Thornwood Estates." Something flickered in her expression. "How's that going?" "I'll take coffee, Deb, and the lumberjack special." She poured the coffee. "That bad, huh? You have no idea." I sat in a booth and watched the morning crowd. Contractors heading to job sites. Families with kids in soccer uniforms. People who worked with their hands and said what they meant and didn't need place cards to know where they belonged. My phone rang. Jim Thompson. "Robert, you're going to want to hear this." "I'm listening." I pulled the property records for Daniel's house. "That $25,000 you gave him? It went toward the down payment. Your money is in the property. And here's the interesting part. Madison's name isn't on the deed. I sat up straight. What? The house is in Daniel's name only. Apparently they bought it before they got married and never updated the deed. So that means, it means if you can prove that $25,000 was a loan, not a gift, you have a legitimate claim against the property. A lien, potentially. But Robert, that's the nuclear option. If you put a lien on Daniel's house, he'd have to refinance or pay me back before they could sell. Exactly. And it would show up on their credit report. Make things very difficult if they tried to buy that Sedona vacation home Madison keeps talking about. I thought about Madison's face when she'd placed my dinner on the floor. How long to file the lien? I need a sworn statement from you about the terms of the loan, any evidence that it was understood to be repayable, and the filing fee. I could have it ready Monday. Do it, Robert. Do it, Jim. Please. There was a pause. Okay, come by Monday morning. 9 o'clock. I spent the weekend out of the house as much as possible. Saturday afternoon at the library. Saturday evening at a movie I didn't really watch. Sunday I drove out to the old neighborhood, parked across from the house Maria and I had built. Someone else lived there now. They'd painted the shutters blue instead of green, put in a fence. But the bones were the same. The porch I'd designed, the bay window I'd installed, the roof I'd replaced twice. I'd given it up because Daniel said he needed help. Because I was supposed to be too old, too tired, too much of a burden to live alone. My phone buzzed. Text from Sophie. Grandpa, where are you? I miss you. I typed back, miss you too, Peanut. See you soon. Then another text from Daniel. Dad, seriously, we need to talk. This silent treatment is childish. Childish. I turned off my phone. Monday morning, I was at Jim's office at 8:45. He had papers spread across his desk. I want you to be absolutely sure, he said. Once we file this, I'm sure this will hurt Daniel financially. It could prevent them from refinancing, from accessing their home equity, from, Jim, I'm going to ask you something. How much is dignity worth? He looked at me for a long moment. Then he pushed the papers forward. Sign here, and initial here. I signed everything. The trust dissolution papers came through this morning, Jim added. As of right now, you have full control of the $300,000 again. What do you want to do with it? New trust. Sophie and Jake are beneficiaries, but no one else can touch it, and add a requirement the kids have to maintain contact with me. Real contact. Visits, calls, letters. If they don't, the trust goes to charity. Jim raised an eyebrow. That's unusual. So is eating off the floor. Fair point. He made notes. What about trustees? You. And I thought about it. Is there a way to include Sophie when she's older? Let her have input on Jake's distributions? We can set up a graduated trustee system. When Sophie turns 18, she can become a co-trustee for Jake's education funds. When Jake turns 18, same thing in reverse. Perfect. That way, they learn responsibility. And they learn that money comes with expectations. What kind of expectations? I thought about Madison, about the way she'd looked at me, about the place card that wasn't. Expectations of basic human decency, Jim. Think you can write that into a legal document? He smiled. I can try. The lien papers were filed by noon. The trust dissolution was recorded by 2. The new trust was drafted by 4. I went home at 5:30. Daniel's car was in the driveway. So was a car I didn't recognize. A silver Mercedes with vanity plates that read Madison 1. Inside, I could hear raised voices. I stood in the entryway and listened. I don't understand what his problem is, Madison. You humiliated him, Madison, Daniel. It was barely even a thing. And now he's what, punishing us? He's acting like a child. He's my father. He's a burden, Daniel, and you know it. I walked into the living room. They both stopped mid-sentence. Don't let me interrupt, I said calmly. Madison recovered first. Robert, Daniel and I were just discussing. I know what you were discussing. I've been discussed quite a bit lately. Dad, Daniel stood up. Look, we need to clear the air. No need. The air's perfectly clear. I pulled the folded papers from my jacket pocket. This is for you. Daniel took them, confused. What is this? Legal notice. I've placed a lien on your house for the $25,000 I loaned you 2 years ago. The room went dead silent. You, what? Madison's voice was barely a whisper. A lien. It means I have a legal claim against the property until the debt is repaid, with interest. Jim Thompson calculated it at $28,750, given current rates. Daniel was staring at the papers, his face white. Dad, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. I have a sworn statement detailing our conversation when I gave you the money, how you called it a loan, how you said you'd pay me back when you refinanced. That was just talk. No, son, that was an agreement. And now it's a legally binding one. Madison snatched the papers from Daniel's hands. Her perfectly manicured fingers shook as she read, This is insane. You're insane. I'm insane? I ate my 72nd birthday dinner from the floor, Madison. I'd say my sanity is perfectly intact. It's my tolerance for disrespect that's gone. It was a joke. No, it wasn't. It was cruelty. There's a difference. Daniel found his voice. Dad, even if you're angry, you can't just, oh, but I can, and I did. There's more. I pulled out the second set of papers. I've also dissolved the educational trust for Sophie and Jake. Madison's face went from white to red. You did what? The $300,000 I set aside for their education. I've revoked that trust. That's our children's future. No, Madison. That was my money, my decision, and I've made a new decision. Daniel sank back onto the couch. Dad, why? Because I want my grandchildren to understand something. Money isn't just numbers. It's not just about having things or looking successful. It's about respect. It's about character. And I won't hand them $300,000 to learn the same lessons you two are teaching them now. So you're punishing Sophie and Jake for, I'm not punishing them. The money still exists. I've created a new trust with new conditions. They'll get every penny for their education, but they'll earn it by being decent human beings, by maintaining a relationship with me, by understanding that family means something beyond convenience and cash flow. Madison was shaking with rage. You spiteful old man. Careful, Madison. I'm a spiteful old man with nearly $500,000 and a very good lawyer. You might want to watch your tone. She looked like she wanted to hit me. Daniel just looked broken. I'll pay you back, he said quietly. The $25,000. I'll get you the money. Take your time. You've got the lien notice. Jim included a payment schedule. 36 months, monthly installments, 5% interest. Dad, please, I'm not trying to hurt you, Daniel. I'm trying to teach you something your mother and I apparently failed to teach you before. What's that? That you don't get to choose dignity for other branch people. You don't get to decide who matters and who doesn't based on how useful they are to you. I turned to leave. Wait. Madison's voice was sharp. If you've taken back the money, if you're demanding repayment, then you can't stay here. You can't live in this house. I smiled. Madison, I was rather hoping you'd say that. What? You just evicted me. In front of a witness. That's important legally, you see. Because now, when I tell people what happened when Jim files the additional paperwork, when Sophie asks why Grandpa moved away, I can honestly say that you threw me out. That's not what I... No? You just told me I can't live here. After I paid $25,000 toward your mortgage. After I gave you $1,000 a month in rent. After I stopped, took a breath. After I sat at the floor and ate my birthday dinner like a dog. I didn't make you. You asked me to. In front of 12 people. At my own birthday party. Daniel's head was in his hands. I'll be out. By Thursday, I said. I've already found an apartment. 1 bedroom, downtown. Walking distance to the diner and the hardware store. It's perfect. An apartment? Daniel looked up. Dad, you sold your house. You can't afford... I have a pension, Social Security, and $315,000 in liquid assets. I can afford whatever I want, son. What I can't afford is another dinner where my humanity is the punchline. I walked to my room, the guest room, and started packing. I didn't have much. Most of my things had been stored when I moved in. By stored, Madison meant donated without asking. But I still had Maria's photo, my father's watch, the quilt Sophie had made me for Christmas, the important things. There was a soft knock. Sophie stood in the doorway, crying. Grandpa, are you leaving? I sat on the bed and she climbed into my lap, even though she was getting too big for that. Yeah, Peanut. I am. Because of Mom? Because it's time. Can I still see you? Every week, I promise. And you know what? My new apartment is close to that ice cream place you like. The one with the Superman flavor. Really, really. She hugged me tight. I'm gonna miss you living here. I'm gonna miss you too. But Sophie, I need you to remember something. What? Being family isn't about living in the same house. It's about love, about showing up, about treating each other right. Can you remember that? I think so. Good girl. That night, Daniel knocked on my door around 10. He looked like he'd aged 5 years. I'm sorry, he said. I know. I should have said something. At the dinner. I should have stood up for you. Yes, you should have. He flinched. Madison gets so stressed with these events, and I thought if I could just keep the peace. You can't keep peace by sacrificing other people's dignity, Daniel. That's not peace. That's cowardice. I know. His voice cracked. I know, Dad. I don't know how it got like this. How I got like this. You married someone who values appearance over substance, and then you started valuing the same things. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you asked me about something that mattered? Not logistics, not my health, not whether I need anything. When did you last ask me about Mom? About my work? About anything that made me who I am? He couldn't answer. I love you, son. I always will. But I don't like who you've become, and I won't subsidize it anymore. The money was never about. The money is always about something. Right now, it's about the fact that I won't be taken for granted. I won't be managed. I won't be tolerated. Daniel wiped his eyes. What do I do? You figure out what kind of man you want to be. And then you decide if Madison fits into that vision or if you've been fitting into hers. He left without saying anything else. I moved out on Wednesday. Jim had found me a 1-bedroom apartment in a converted factory. Building downtown. Exposed brick, big windows, hardwood floors. It was beautiful. It cost $1,200 a month, $200 more than I'd been paying Daniel. Worth every penny. I hired movers for the few things I had. Sophie and Jake came by to help me unpack. Madison didn't come. Daniel showed up for an hour, awkward and sad. The place looks good, Dad. It feels good. Listen, about the money. Payment schedules in the lien documents. First payments due at the end of the month. Right. Yeah. He looked around. You need anything? I'm fine, son. He left soon after. But Sophie and Jake stayed. We ordered pizza, set up my TV, hung Maria's photo over the fireplace. This is way cooler than your room at our house, Jake said. He was 12, all elbows and honesty. Yeah? I smiled. Yeah, it's actually yours. You know? I knew. That weekend, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Mitchell, this is Patricia Vanderhoff. We met at your birthday dinner. The developer's wife. The important connection. I remember. I wanted to reach out personally. My husband and I were very disturbed by what we witnessed that evening. I appreciate that, but please, let me finish. We've known Madison socially for about a year. She's been very persistent about cultivating our friendship. But after what we saw, how she treated you, we've decided to distance ourselves from the family. I didn't know what to say. Additionally, Mrs. Vanderhoff continued, my husband wanted me to call because he's looking for someone to consult on a renovation project. Historic home needs someone who understands traditional construction. Madison mentioned you'd been a contractor for 30 years. That's right. Would you be interested? The pay is negotiable, but Charles values expertise and character. I looked around my apartment, at Maria's photo, at the open space and the light. Mrs. Vanderhoff, I'd be very interested. Wonderful. I'll have Charles call you tomorrow with the details. Can I ask why you're doing this? She was quiet for a moment. My father spent his last years living with my brother and his wife. They treated him like an inconvenience, like his only value was his savings account. By the time I realized what was happening, he'd passed. Her voice caught. I can't fix what I failed to stop, but I can do something now. Thank you, I said. Really. The renovation consultation turned into a 6-month project. Charles Vanderhoff had purchased a Victorian mansion that needed complete restoration. He wanted it done right, with period-appropriate materials and techniques. He hired me as the lead consultant at $75 an hour, 20 hours a week. It was more money than I'd made in retirement, but more than that, it was purpose. I worked with contractors half my age, teaching them about crown molding and plaster work and how to restore 100-year-old hardwood. I was useful again, respected. I heard through Sophie that Madison was furious about the Vanderhoffs. Apparently, their social circle had noticed the distance. Other people started asking questions. The story got out somehow. Not from me, I never talked about it. But small towns are small, and dinner parties have witnesses. Madison's charity gala had trouble finding sponsors. Her junior league friends stopped calling. The country club membership committee postponed their application. Daniel made his first payment on the lien, on time, but without a note or call. The second payment came with a short text. Dad, can we talk? I didn't respond. The third payment came with a letter, handwritten, 3 pages. I read it sitting in my apartment, coffee in hand, late afternoon sun through the windows. Daniel wrote about how he'd lost himself, how Madison's ambitions had become his ambitions, how he'd measured his worth by her satisfaction, and somewhere along the way forgotten what actually mattered. He wrote about finding out that Madison had been telling people I had dementia, that I was difficult, that I'd chosen to move out because I was unstable. He wrote that he'd confronted her, that they were in counseling, that he didn't know if the marriage would survive, but he knew he couldn't keep being the person he'd become. He wrote, I know I can't undo what I let happen. I know saying sorry isn't enough. But Dad, I'm trying. I'm really trying. At the bottom, Sophie asks about you every day. She misses you. So do I. I folded the letter and put it in the drawer with Maria's things. 2 weeks later, I was working at the Vanderhoff house when my phone rang. Daniel. Dad. His voice was strange. Strained. It's Mom. My heart stopped. What? Madison's mother. She had a stroke. She's in the hospital. It's bad. I thought about Madison, about how much of her behavior suddenly made sense if you considered what she'd learned from her family. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully. Madison's a mess. She's scared, and she keeps asking for you. For me? She said. She said she needs to talk to you. She said there are things she needs to say. I drove to the hospital that evening, found Madison in the waiting room outside ICU. She looked smaller somehow, older. Her perfect hair was pulled back messily, no makeup. She'd been crying. She saw me and stood up. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. How's your mother? Not good. They don't think she'll make it through the night. I'm sorry, Madison nodded, sat back down. I sat a few chairs away. My father was like you, she said after a long silence. Worked with his hands, built things. He was kind. I waited. My mother hated it. She wanted more, better. She spent my whole childhood telling me that we deserved more than what his labor could provide, that I should marry someone professional, someone important. Madison, when my father died, he'd saved $50,000 for my college. My mother spent it remodeling the house. She said I could get loans, but the house needed to look right. I didn't say anything. I learned from her, Madison continued. I learned that love was weakness, that kindness was something you couldn't afford if you wanted to matter. And when you moved in, when you were so present, it scared me. Why? Because you reminded me of my father. And my father died disappointed. He died knowing my mother looked down on him, that I looked down on him. She was crying now. I didn't want Daniel to be disappointed. I didn't want him to realize he'd married his mother. So you tried to make me smaller. Yes, she looked at me. I tried to make you not matter so I didn't have to face what I'd become. And Robert, I'm so sorry. I sat with that, with her pain, with the generational trauma that had turned into my birthday dinner on the floor. Your mother's illness isn't your fault, I said finally. I know, but it makes you think. About time. About what you'll regret when there's no time left. What do you regret? Everything about how I treated you. You gave us so much. You loved Daniel so well. And I treated you like garbage because you reminded me that people can be good without being important. And I couldn't stand it. She pulled something from her purse. An envelope. This is a check. For the full amount of the lien, $28,750. I've been saving from my personal account. Daniel doesn't know. I took the envelope. Madison, I can't undo what I did, but I can pay my debts. I can at least do that. We sat there until a doctor came out. Madison's mother had stabilized. Still critical, but stable. Madison sagged with relief. "Go be with your mother," I said. "Tell her you love her. Tell her all the things you need to say. Will you? Would you consider coming to dinner? Real dinner. At a table, with place cards that include your name." "Maybe," I said. "Someday. But Madison, I need you to understand something." "What?" "I don't need your money. I don't need your apologies. What I need is to see that you've changed. That you're teaching my grandchildren something different than what you learned. I'm trying. Then keep trying. That's all any of us can do." I left the hospital and went home, deposited Madison's check the next morning. Used it to set up a scholarship fund in Maria's name for students pursuing skilled trades. Daniel called when he found out. "Dad, Madison told me what she did. The check. You didn't have to. I didn't do it for her. I did it for me. And for your mother. The scholarship fund is beautiful. Your mother believed in building things that lasted. This will last. Dad, would you? Sophie's birthday is next month. Would you come? Just family. Just us. Will there be place cards?" I asked. "No place cards?" "I promise. Then I'll come." Sophie's birthday was on a Saturday in May. Daniel had rented a pavilion at the state park. Cake from the grocery store bakery, not the expensive place. Hot dogs and hamburgers, simple. Sophie ran to me when I arrived, Jake right behind her. "Grandpa, you came." "Wouldn't miss it, Peanut." Madison was there, but she hung back. She'd lost weight. Looked tired. But when she smiled at Sophie, it seemed real. Daniel grilled. We ate at picnic tables. Sophie opened presents, including a toolkit I'd put together for her, with a hammer that fit her hands and a level and a tape measure. For building things, I told her, "Your great-grandmother would have loved you." "Will you teach me?" Sophie asked. "Every week." "I promise." As the sun started to set, Daniel came and sat next to me. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me. The right way. I meant what I said in my letter. I'm trying to be better. I know you are. Madison and I are still in counseling. It's hard, but we're talking about real things now. Honest things. That's good. She told me about her father, about what her mother did. I never knew. We all carry things, Daniel. The question is whether we use them as excuses or lessons." He nodded. "Dad, I don't expect you to forgive me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I want you to know that I see it now. What I did. What I allowed." I looked at my son, at the gray in his hair that hadn't been there a year ago, at the way he watched his children with something like desperation, as if he was trying to memorize them. "Daniel, I forgave you the night you let me eat from the floor." He looked at me, shocked. "What?" "I forgave you because holding on to it would have destroyed me more than it hurt you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean trust comes back instantly. I know. Trust is like a house. It takes time to build. But it can burn down in an evening. We're rebuilding now. That's all we can do." He wiped his eyes. Yeah, okay." Sophie came running over. "Grandpa, come push me on the swings." I stood up. My knees cracked. 72 years of living. Coming, Peanut. As I walked toward the playground, I heard Madison say to Daniel, "He's good with them. He's always been good with them." Daniel replied, "I just forgot to notice." I pushed Sophie on the swings until the sun was mostly down and the mosquitoes came out. She laughed the whole time, fearless and loud. Jake came over and we played on the monkey bars. I couldn't do them anymore, but I spotted him while he went across, and he told me about his soccer team and a girl he liked, and how he was thinking about trying out for the school play. Normal things, good things. When it was time to leave, Madison approached me carefully. "Robert, I want you to know, I've started seeing my own therapist. Not just the marriage counseling. My own work." "That's good, Madison. Really. She's helping me understand why I needed to put people down to feel up. That's a start. Would you be willing to come to a session? She thinks it might help if I could hear from you how my actions impacted you." I thought about whether I wanted to spend an hour explaining my pain to someone who'd caused it. But then I thought about Sophie, about Jake, about what they'd learn if they watched us do the hard work of healing. "Okay," I said. "I'll come." "Really?" "Really. But Madison, I need you to understand that this is for them." I gestured toward the kids. "Not for you or Daniel. For them. Because they deserve to see what it looks like when adults take responsibility. I understand. And if you ever speak about me the way you did before, if you ever treat anyone the way you treated me, I'm done. No second chances. No third chances. We're done." "That's fair." I left the park as the stars came out, drove back to my apartment with the windows down, spring air cool and clean. At home, I poured a glass of whiskey, sat on my little balcony overlooking downtown. The city lights flickered like scattered stars. My phone buzzed. Text from Sophie. "Thank you for coming, Grandpa. Best birthday ever. Love you." I smiled and typed back, "Love you too, Peanut. See you next week for tool lessons." Another text from an unknown number. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Patricia Vanderhoff. Charles and I would like to invite you to dinner next Saturday. We'd love to hear more about your work. And we have another project we'd like to discuss." And then one from Jim Thompson. "Robert, the scholarship fund is officially established. First award will go out this fall. Maria would be proud." I set the phone down and looked at the stars. 72 years old. Retired contractor. Widower. Father. Grandfather. Man who wouldn't eat from the floor. Man who rebuilt his dignity with the same hands that built his house, his career, his life. There's a photo on my mantle now. From Sophie's birthday. We're all in it. Me, Daniel, Madison, Sophie, Jake. We're smiling. It looks almost perfect, but I know the truth. I know what it took to get to that smile. The lawyers and the liens and the hard conversations and the broken trust. I know that Madison still struggles with her mother's voice in her head. That Daniel still catches himself trying to please rather than lead. That forgiveness is a daily choice, not a single moment. I know that some people think I should have just let it go. That family means accepting everything, forgiving everything, tolerating everything. But I also know that my granddaughter has a toolkit now, that my grandson tells me the truth about his life. That when I visit, I sit at the table with my name on a place card that says Grandpa in Sophie's handwriting. I know that Maria would have been proud. Sometimes dignity costs everything. Sometimes it costs a house, a trust fund, 6 months of silence, and the willingness to walk away from people you love. But sometimes that cost is worth paying. Because I didn't lose my family that night. I gave them a choice. Be the kind of people who treat others with respect, or be the kind of people who eat alone. They're choosing respect now. Most days, it's not perfect, but it's real. And when Sophie asks me to teach her how to build things, I tell her, first, you build a foundation. You make sure it's level and strong, because everything else depends on that. She nods seriously, measuring twice, cutting once. She's learning. They're all learning. And me? I'm learning that starting over at 72 isn't an ending. It's not exile or abandonment or loss. It's freedom. It's knowing that I can build something new with these old hands. That I can choose who I share my table with. That my worth isn't measured by what I can provide or how convenient I am. It's measured by how I treat people, by what I build, by what I leave behind. I'm leaving behind a scholarship, fund, a restored Victorian mansion, 2 grandchildren who know how to use a level, a son who's learning to stand up straight, and a story about a man who was asked to eat from the floor like a pet and who smiled instead. Because real power isn't in revenge. It's in walking away when someone tries to make you smaller than you are, and then building something better with the life you have left. That's what Maria would have wanted. That's what I want. And on the good days, sitting on my balcony with the city lights below and the stars above, and my phone buzzing with messages from people who chose to be family, I realized something. I didn't lose anything that night. I got free. And freedom, it turns out, is the best revenge of all. Not because it hurts them, but because it heals you. If you like this story, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to more stories, click on the window on the right. Thank you for being with us.